Hey, what's going on, everybody? Nobody Famous here again with another beatdown video from MachineMasters.com. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up at NobodyFamous on Twitter, or you can leave a comment in the comment section on the video, and I'll try to check back every day and answer anything that any questions you have about these different videos and things like that. So for this video, what I'm going to show you is how to set up, prepare your sessions for live performance, and then create like a live performance set. Just to kind of give you an example of how I do it. I used to have like a drummer, a guitarist, and a singer, so I wouldn't actually have my drums playing from this, but I'd have everything else playing, and then everybody else do their thing over the beat, things like that. So I'm just going to show you how I do it, and then you can take bits and pieces, all of it or whatever, and kind of incorporate it into how you work for your live sets. So the first thing you're going to do, and I actually had to record this video again because I had some audio issues, so you won't actually see the process of the tracks flattening, but I'll show you where you click to do that. So you want to have everything organized in your clip view first, because that's what you're going to be working out of for your live sessions. And once you do that, you see I have my launch pad on, so you see the matrix is highlighted, the 8x8, so I can launch these clips. Don't have to use my mouse, but I can launch it from the launch pad or APC or whatever. So the first thing I do is, once I have everything organized, I'm going to click my first track, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and click the last track. So it's going to select everything. The next thing I'll do is Control click. I think it's right click on the PC. And you're going to freeze the track. Now, these are already frozen, but once you freeze the track, you're going to basically do that same thing again, the Control click, and you're going to see unfreeze track, and then you're going to see flatten, and then you're going to want to flatten the tracks. So what the flatten is going to do is it's going to turn everything that you have in your session into a WAV file. So the reason why I suggest you do this is because as you add more and more to your live set, because it's going to be one set, you're not going to switch between sets on stage. If you have a bunch of instruments going and you have a bunch of effects going, it's going to bog down your computer, your memory and processing power and everything, and you don't want to be on stage and have your computer freeze up in the middle of a set. So it's a lot easier for your computer to just handle all of the audio, the audio files. So I suggest mixing everything exactly how you want to mix it. And then when you save it, I usually just save it as like frozen. I'll just save it as a different set. So if I ever need to go back and add anything into my actual original set, I can do that. But then I also have my frozen tracks for my live performance. So once you do that, you're just going to want to go and create a new set, a new Ableton Live set. And if you watch like my last video, I have just a delay and reverb set up, and you can utilize those for my sends. And but basically, other than that, it's pretty much just the stock Ableton Live set. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this MIDI track, and then I'm going to create a bunch of audio tracks. And another thing too, while I'm doing this, is you're going to want to remember maybe jot down or make a note of the tempo for each one of your tracks that you're going to be using in your live set, and I'll show you why here in a minute. So now that I have a bunch of different tracks, like 34, which is more than enough for right now, I'm going to open up the folder that has my beats in it. So I'm going to use 2 beats for this particular example. And you see I have my original one, and then I have like the one that says frozen after it. So I'm going to take the one that's frozen, I'm going to drag it in, and you're going to see it's basically going to fill in and show where all of these tracks are going to fill in from that session. It's going to look exactly like the beat in my other Ableton Live session. So I'll let it go, and there it is. And basically, it's the exact same. The only thing that it doesn't do is adjust the volumes for each track. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of time doing that, because it's something you just got to listen to, and you know how you mix your track and everything like that. But all you're going to have to do is kind of go through, bring your volumes down or whatever. You can send something to reverb and delay if you have some send set up, things like that. And then, of course, I highly recommend just staying organized, so when you come back to it, you always know what's there. So I'll go through, this is like a piano pad, this is like my kick, this is my snare, and I'll just go through and I'll label everything so that I know what is what, especially if you're going to launch clips individually. Normally what I do is I'm always launching from the master, so it's going to, because I already have it set up with verse, hook, things like that. But depending on how you work, you might want to launch clips individually. So make sure you just label everything of what everything is. And I also color code everything as well. So I just kind of know like my grays, my blacks are usually percussion or like drums, kicks, and things like that. And then like my pinks and purples and greens are usually like my synthesizers or pads, just depending on what it is. So once I label everything, the next thing I'll do is I'll select the first track from that beat, and I'll go to the last one, and I'll press Command G. So that's going to group all of these tracks. So right now you see my matrix is around all of these tracks, and my whole launch pad is lit up wherever a clip is. Now if I close this up, now I just have these just one row of LEDs lit up on my launch pad, or if I was using the APC, it'd be the APC or whatever. So it's just a cool way to keep everything neat and organized. So it's like when you're in that beat and you're performing that beat live or that song live, you know, you might have that open so you can see what's going on and things like that. But then when you're done with it, you can just close it up, go to the next one, go to the next one. This beat was called Sin, so I usually just label it and give it a name, and I also color code it. So I'll do this one purple, and then since that's purple, I'll come over here and I have, let's see, 6 different sections for this beat. So I click the first one, go down to 6, and click again while holding Shift, and I'll click and Control and click, and I'll give it the same color purple. So that just helps me keep organized. I know if I'm working in this beat right here, it's matching up with this, and you can use just different colors all the way down as you start to add more and more beats. And I'll show you how to add another one here in a second. So once I do that, the next thing I do is I label everything on my master tracks. So if I'm just launching from my master clips, you want to know what you're launching, and especially if you have it closed up, collapsed, it's just easier if you have it that way. So like this is like an intro. This is verse 1, and you can just tab down. It's like the second half of my verse. This is like hook 1, and then it might be like hook 2 with a variation, and then a breakdown. I'm not exactly sure if that's exactly what all these different parts are, but just for the sake of this tutorial, we'll call them that. Now, the reason why you want to make sure you remember the tempo of each track is so that you don't have to go through and like change this tempo as you're in a set. So what I usually do is I click on my intro one, my intro master track, since I know that's what I'm always going to launch at the beginning of a beat. I control and click, and then there's this option for edit launch tempo. So this tempo for this beat is 68. I'll type in 68 and I'll hit enter. Okay, so right now the tempo is at 96. So if you watch, if I launch this clip, it's going to jump to 68. All right, and you're going to want to do that for whatever master clip that you launch for the beginning of a new beat. I suggest doing that because it's just easier than trying to remember what's what, and it just stays organized that way. Okay, so this beat was called Sins, and I have that in there. Now I'm going to add like the next beat. So I'm going to go back to my folder, and this was called, the session's called Other Girls. The song ended up being called Those Girls, but I have a one that's frozen. So I'm going to click on it, same process. I'm going to drag it in. I see where everything's going to fall. Make sure it's correct. I let go. Boom. I have everything in there, all right? So the next thing I'll do is I'll select my first track, and I go to the last one. Hold down Shift, click, Command G, and group them. And then I can collapse that up. So as you see, it's neat and organized. So when I want to open up this one, click here. It opens it up. I see everything. When I want to open up this one, click it, opens up everything. So I give it a name, and let's color this one to say white, okay? So I come here to number 7, and I go down to, oops, wrong button, to 15, and then I control click, turn that white. So I know that all of these white sections is matching up with those girls. And then I would go through, give it a name, like this is my intro, verse 1, etc., all the way down to the end, depending on however you have your beat set up. And then once I do that, I'll also change my tempo. So my tempo again for this one is 70. So I'll do control click, change my tempo, change it to 70. So you see right now that's at 68. I'll click it. It automatically jumps to 70. Now again, as I said, that all of these volumes you're gonna have to go through and edit them, but you're gonna be building out your live set. You're gonna have plenty of time to kind of go through and tweak everything. And plus, as you're going live, you know, you might be mixing in headphones or mixing on studio monitors. If you're like in a club or a venue or whatever, you might hear something that you need to bring down. So you might be actually tweaking some of this on the fly live as well. So, you know, I would basically do this with several different beats. Say I had a 10 beat set or 10 song set. It will look like tracks, but each one of these will be groups, and then I can open up these groups for each one of my beats. And I'll just keep scrolling down and over as I go down. So like this will be another one that will start here, then the next one will start below that, and you just keep adding more tracks as you go down. Now, the next thing I'll do, and I'm just going to delete these tracks because we don't need them right now, but you want to have a lot of extra tracks when you bring in your new session, so that way they have a place to fall into. Because Ableton, maybe 9 does. I know with 8, it won't create new tracks for you automatically. So you just want to have extra tracks in there when you drag in your session file. Another thing to keep in mind is is how far out you want to launch your clip. So usually when I'm just like making beats and performing, or just doing it, you know, as I'm creating the actual track, I'll launch it as a quarter note out. But I usually use 1 bar for when I'm doing live stuff. So basically, it's like if something's playing and I launch something, it's going to start playing the next bar. So it's like if I have a 4-bar intro, once that fourth bar starts playing and I click on something else, it's going to count down, and then it will start playing on the next whatever clips I launch. So here's an example. So basically, I let that part play for four bars, and within that that last bar, I clicked on the breakdown part, and then it automatically launched it at the top of that 5th measure to go into the breakdown part. So just depending on how you like to launch stuff. The only reason why I do it at a bar is because I don't want to miss. I want to make sure that I launch it, and I don't want to miss if something's too close. If I'm doing it like at a quarter note or 1/8 note or something, I might miss like a turnaround going into a verse or going into a hook or whatever. So I just suggest a bar, but you can do it all the way up to 8 bars out, 4 bars, whatever. So then a couple other things that I do is I'm gonna create a couple MIDI tracks. I create like some racks for my performance. So like I'll do a drum rack, and I'll add just different sound effects and stuff. So, and claps and drums or whatever. So like I add that 808 clap. I'll add like some sound effects. So let's see here. Maybe like some sweeps. I'll add maybe like a bang, and that will just be something I can use like for transitions between different songs. I mean between different beats or songs or whatever. I might add like some finger snaps. I might add a snare. Oops. And let's say an 808. Alright, so then I'll come over here to volume. I'll change that volume to 0. It can be any one of these different sounds. I'll control click, and I'll copy that value to my siblings, and that's basically going to copy that value of 0 for the volume to each one of these sound clips that I have loaded up into my drum rack. I'll expand the drum rack, and I'll go through and just adjust volumes on everything. So obviously all this needs to be brought down a little bit. And these can be, it could be sound effects, it can be like movie clips, like little like snippets from movie clips in between beats. Whatever the vibe you're going for, you can like add these to your drum racks. Sometimes if it's like a breakdown or something, instead of just staring at my computer screen for 4 or 8 bars waiting for like the next section to come in, I'll add or something, just so that I'm like having fun and everything's alive and I'm not just, you know, like I said, just pressing buttons. Next thing I'll do, so you don't, if you have several different instruments that you're using in the set, it's only going to play whatever you have selected, obviously. So instead of having to arm every track and remember, like if you have dedicated controllers for certain things, like you can, this is an option that you can use. So I'll use the MPD18. So you come over here to the right side on your in and out, and you're going to click that. And then on your MIDI from, I'm going to select my MPD18. And then I'm just going to change my monitor from auto to in. And you see it turn orange. So now basically what that does, instead of me having to arm this track to play something, especially if it's live, right, it just automatically is going to be dedicated to that track. And if I have more, if I set up more tracks going from the MPD18, then it will also play those as well. So then you might have to like mute something. But if you only have like one drum rack going, you can just leave that always activated, and then there you go with that. The next thing I'll do is I'll drag in like a couple VSTs. So like say for this one, I want like a piano, right? And then for the next one, I just want like this synthesizer. All right, so my keyboard is controlling that. So what I'll do is this for my live performances. I'll select my key station and the in. So basically, the keyboard is controlling that. Now, since I only have one keyboard, I'm going to do the same thing for this as well. So you can do a couple different things with this. You can layer different sounds like this way, or you just have to remember to unmute and mute certain things depending on the song. So it's like before the song comes in, if you know this one's going to have piano, you can have your piano on there. If you know this one's going to have that synthesizer, you can just mute the piano and then unmute the synthesizer. And then you can do that for as many different instruments as you want, depending on what you're going to actually play live over the beats as your beats are playing. And then finally, another thing that I like to do is there's an effect called Fade to Gray. It was in the original Live 8 library. So what I'll do is there's two ways you can use this, and this is just something that I really like to use. You don't necessarily have to use this, but I'll show you how it works. Is I'll put it on the master track, and it's really good for like a transition between tracks to kind of create like this ambient, like faded out, washed out effect, and then it kind of comes back into like the next beat. So one thing that you can do if you have like an APC or any keyboard that has knobs or any controller that has knobs or faders is you can go into mapping mode, and that's just Command M, and you would click on this, and you can see if like anything that's purple you can basically map. So you click on like the fade to gray button, you see like the brackets around it. When you turn the knob, it's going to actually tell you what's being controlled up here. So I don't have anything hooked up right now, but if I did that and turned the knob, you would actually see something pop up right here. And then I will I'll hop out of that mode and just press Command M again. So basically with that knob on my physical controller, as I turned it, will control this fade to gray. So I'll show you what this sounds like and just how it's a cool effect that you can use for your live set. So like say this part's playing, and then I'm going to come out of this beat and go into the next beat. Alright, so basically what I did was I launched, like once I turned up my fade to gray all the way up, I launched my next beat, went into my next beat, and then I was using some of these sound effects to kind of add like this washed out fading in, coming from washed out to more of like fading in to the actual beat. So just clicking some of these different sound effects and things like that. So it's just a cool way you can do it. You can use beat repeats. You can just stop the track right out and go into the next one or whatever. So basically that's how I set up a set for like live performances in Ableton Live. And like I said, just as a review, color code is super useful. You're going to label everything. That's super useful. And then make sure that you set your tempos to whatever master clip that you're going to launch first, unless you want to change your tempos on the fly. But it's just one less thing to think about, and that's something that one less thing that can go wrong when you're on stage performance. You want to focus more on the performance and like what's the tempo of this beat or the tempo of that beat, and then you can group everything, and then going back to the original beats, just make sure you freeze and flatten everything and just save that as a separate set, and then you just basically drag that in when you create a bunch of different tracks. Drag it in, and it will everything will pop in. You adjust your volumes, and you're pretty much good to go. So if you have any questions, hit me up. NobodyFamous on Twitter, MachineMasters.com. Shouts out to them for all the great resources they provide producers. And stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.